Ever thought about building an empire in real life instead of just on some computer game?
Welcome to the show. Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hey there, welcome to this episode of Your Ultimate Life. I titled this one From Empire Builder to Difference Maker. And I ask if you've ever thought about building an empire. And maybe you have. Maybe when you were young, you thought about being president or king or prime minister, depending on where you live, or being the CEO or in charge of some gigantic thing, or presiding over an enormous family with lots of kids and grandkids. In some way, having a large impact. Well, you know, that's not weird to think about that. And it's not weird to think about doing that even now when you're not a kid, because that's what your ultimate life is about. You have a life, you know, YOLO, you only live once. Every day passes one time. Tick, 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 right? It moves through us just once. And then we have the opportunity to have the next day, you know, and yesterday's done. And what I notice, and you know this is going to be obvious, we spend a lot of time today worrying about yesterday or last week or stuff we did or didn't do. It's like, I should have this, that, and the other. And you know what's funny? You can't change any of it. Now, you can look at yesterday and say, I made a mess. And you can say, today I'm going to clean up that mess. But you can't unmake the mess. So, point one, if you want to do something meaningful in this life, stop worrying about yesterday. Sit present here where you are, right here, right now, with focus and clarity. Being present. Now, you've heard that buzzword before. Live in the present. Well, do that. How do you do that? Well, you have to practice because we are endlessly distracted, right? On the news, if you watch the news, now I live in Canada, but we see a lot of news in the U.S., all kinds of things going on in the U.S. right now, not only right now, and they're thinking about something that happened a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago, and, you know, prosecutions and investigations and all that stuff. So much focus on the past. And in some cases, that's exactly right. Today, you have to take stock of you don't have to do anything, but take stock of your life and say, where am I today? Now, that may be as a result of yesterday. Today, you may be facing a really difficult financial situation because of an investment you made last week that went south, or last year. Somebody, you know, presented something, you said, looks good, you put a bunch of money in it, and now it's gone. So now you're in a situation where you have to change that and do something about that. That isn't what I'm talking about when I say don't think about yesterday. What I'm talking about is that rumination and that churning and swirling that just eats your guts and eats your lunch. What's the point? Okay, let's go back to the example. Invest a bunch of money last year, and now the investment went south, and all your money's gone. You darn well got to do something about that. You got to take some action. You got to think about, okay, this stuff I was depending on, maybe it's retirement, maybe it's investment money, whatever, and you say that's gone, and you can sit around for a day, week, month, year, and moan, or you can say, what do I need to do now? So the what do I need to do now is what we need to focus on. The other place we stick a lot of our attention is in the future. We think about what's coming, what we hope for. As I record this, we're a few days before Christmas in 2025, and this episode isn't going live until out there in 26, into January or something, and that's when you'll see it, or maybe later. But spending time thinking about the future or worrying worse about the future is also pointless. Now, planning for the future, where you do concrete things, I'm building a house, so I'm going to order the materials, and they'll be here in this sequence this week and the next week and the next week. That's planning for the future. And that's way different than worrying about the future. Mark Twain, I think, is credited with saying, I know worrying is very effective. You know how I know? Because nearly everything I worried about didn't happen. Of course, that's supposed to be funny, and it is, except the sad part is we spend a ton of time worrying about possible negative outcomes. Worrying is a waste of the imagination. I didn't originate that. Someone else is credited with that quote, and I don't remember who, but I love it. It is a waste of your imagination. It's a waste of our divine creativity. So I did that once, and I don't like it. So I don't do that. I don't do worry. Not going to do that, and I don't. Instead, I do planning. So for the past, I do mitigation and repair if something needs fixing. For the future, I do planning. And in neither case is there wallowing or worrying. We wallow in the past, either in misery or regret or sadness or something, and we worry about the future. Those are total wastes of your power, your creativity, your divine DNA, all that macho, with not just men, but women too, all that power you have in you. It's total waste. So wallowing or worrying, we're burning that down. If you want to mitigate or fix something, repair something, that's great. And if you want to plan and organize for the future, that's also good. Now, I want to talk today about from empire builder to difference maker. You know, here's the thing. You and I, we each have the power to create. We were given the keys of creation. One of the fabulous things that I have learned, we've had a Ukrainian mother and daughter with us now for 3.5 years, and they moved out in October, but they're back with us for a month or two because there was some water damage in the condo that they're in. So one of the things I notice is the girl, Veronica, she is wildly creative. Just, she draws really well, spectacular drawing, cats and other things, and they're just beautiful. And, her mom's got her in different art classes and stuff, and the stuff she brings home is amazing. Wild creativity. And on the other hand, she also does crazy things that are cool. She's crazy about cats, and so she builds cat hotels out of cardboard boxes with passageways here, and she goes through a whole lot of boxing tape to tape all that stuff together, but it's okay. And it's fun to watch. And so I think she's 10 now, she'll be 11 this coming January, maybe by the time you see this, she'll have had her birthday and be 11. But here's the thing I want you to think about. It's easy to look at someone else's creativity and say, oh, how amazing, and underneath kind of be thinking, I wish I could do that. And here's the truth, you can. You're just not. And I don't mean that to be an indictment. It is something to think about strongly and clearly. Now, I just turned 70 a few days ago, and I'm embarking this coming year, actually starting now, 3 weeks before the end of the year, building a university. I'm building a university, a powerful, divinely inspired university. Why? Because I am so committed to loving and blessing everyone I can. I have been loved and blessed by the divine. I have been loved and blessed by my angel that I'm married to, Joy, who I've talked about often. And, you've heard the stories of my previous life from 0 to 52. And for the last 18 years, I've been on a mission to do two things: mitigate and repair that which was left over from those first 52 years, lots of mess, some good things, but lots of mess, and plan and execute the future. Now, the only time I can take any action, whether it's repair, mitigation, planning, is right now. And so here's the invitation for both of us. Let's use all of our seconds, minutes, moments right now to be doing the things that matter right now. So how do you decide what matters? I titled this thing Empire Builder to Difference Maker, as I mentioned, and we all have a yearning to matter, and at the same time, we are afraid of judgment and rejection. When we're kids, we don't have that fear. That's something we learn as we go through life. We learn to be afraid of getting smashed around, laughed at, ignored, or whatever. What if we unlearn that? Right? We've all learned it, more or less. What if we unlearn that fear of judgment or rejection? And you might say, well, Kellan, how the heck do you do that? Well, let's talk about that for a minute. The first fundamental truth is what someone else thinks of you is none of your business. Like, you can't control how much energy and effort have you spent. I know I have, either trying to manage or repair someone else's opinion of me. Well, you know what's funny is most of the time we actually don't know what the opinion is. Sometimes we do. They've gone out of their way to express it. Sometimes with admiration and love, but often with displeasure and, ripping on us. So we do have a pretty good idea. And then we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to change that opinion. Stop doing that. If you've made a mistake, spend some time repairing and apologizing if you need to. Whatever they do with that apology or that repair attempt is not your fault or your problem. Fix what you can and then be done with it. Now, when you're planning for the future, I'm planning for 26. I've already got things underway, building a new website for the university, building a website for the first school that's opening, the School of Transformational Authorship and Creation. That's coming. And that's part of this difference maker. Now, empire builder is, you're going to hear that word, those words any way you want to, and that's fine. What I meant by empire builder is, look at me, I am an emperor, I have an empire, sort of self-aggrandizing things. And you may build an empire, and you may be feared or revered. You have a boatload of cash, or you have a empire. We know people like that. Some that actually have an empire, and some that, the only empire they have is in their mind. And I ask you, how effective are they? How fun are they to be around? How loved are they? How loving are they? Now, contrast that with a difference maker. Right? Let's go back in history and think about those that made differences. Gandhi, prime example, he didn't build an empire, massive difference maker. Jesus, he didn't build an empire, but he made a difference that has lasted to today and will last as long as the earth stands. So you and I, we get to choose. I choose difference maker. I invite you to do that too. And in order to be a difference maker, we have to assess, what do we have that makes a difference? What do we have that really matters in terms of helping alleviate suffering, creating joy, building good things? And the answer is a lot. So I've often said the most important gift or tool that either one of us has is the story of our own becoming. Because if you're watching this podcast and the idea of creating your ultimate life appeals to you, then purpose, prosperity, and joy, or whatever words you substitute for that, they're important to you. And that starts with purpose. Now, I get out of bed every single day, today included, no exceptions, with the purpose forefront in my mind. My purpose is to build this university and nurture 300 million people to understand their worth, your identity as a divine being, your possibility, which is infinite, if you want to use it, focus on the present moments and do what's effective. Your ownership, which means you own all of your time, even though we often give that away, and your sovereignty, WIPOS, W-I-P-O-S. Sovereignty is govern, like a sovereign, right? You are the sovereign of your life. You're the architect, you're the builder, you're the designer. Even if you abdicate and what you have sucks, you built it. Maybe it was built by inattention. So let's talk about how to do that in a very practical ways, because life goes by. And for me, at least, at the end of the calendar year and the end of my personal year, I think about those things and think about, what am I going to do next year to build on what I've done this year? Right? So you've had some success. You've conquered. Maybe you're already a CEO of your own company or a very large company. Maybe you make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year and you're very comfortable. I'll bet you that even with that success, there is a yearning to make a bigger difference in the world. I'll bet you feel that right now. And as I look you in the eye and say that, I'll bet you it's resonating and you're saying, you know what, I do. And so I want you to think with me today about how to turn that success the gears, the effort, the focus that led you to create that success. Let's turn that into significance, shall we? Something that matters for a much longer term. So there's a turning point that happens. When we're building this empire, we focus on accumulation. How much money's in my bank account? How many investments do I have? How many cars do I have? How new are they? What's the size of the house? What's the name of my title? We focus on accumulating cool stuff, markers that say we're cool. Maybe to start with, it's degrees or institutions we've attended or accolades we have. I write a lot of books. You know that. I have a bunch of Amazon #1 bestsellers, #1 international bestseller in 50 categories 15 times. That's true. Okay. That's accumulation. How do I turn that, or how do we turn it? How do we activate those accomplishments so that they make a difference in the world? So a question we can always ask is, how much is enough? Well, one of the phrases that I have in my PTAC, Personal Truth and Commitment document, and if you don't know what that is, Living with Purpose and Power will teach you. It's the most important document you will ever have in your life, right? Outside of your sacred literature that connects you to God. But this relates to that anyway. Living with Purpose and Power. If you haven't read it, you're not serious about personal growth. So get it and read it. But the point is, you don't need to do anything, but if you're growing in this way, activating your successes, you move from enough, more, the moreness, right? How much is enough, to what can I give? Now, some of that has to do with age. When we get a little older, 50, 60, 70, I just turned 70, I said a few days ago, we realize that we're not going to take anything with us. And maybe we have material things to give, money and resources and things, but the most important stuff we have to give is who we are. Because you wouldn't be here watching this if you didn't have a desire to give, to create, and to serve. My 3 activating words are love, create, serve. Love fearlessly, right? Create space for imagination to blossom, creativity to explode, and serve fiercely. And it feels good. And this is difference maker. Everything that I do, every day I get up, that's what I think about. And I'm not saying that for yay me, so what? I'm telling you that my experience has shown me that is the most beautiful and joyful way to live. What can I give today? Who can I serve? How can I help? Right? And already this morning, it's morning as I record this, already this morning, I've sent and received many messages from clients, messages of encouragement, growth, answering some questions, doing things to help them keep moving on their path. And my greatest joy comes in helping them get to their goals, because I have mine. I'm living my ultimate life. And so my goal now is to build this university, to nurture 300 million people, you included, to live your ultimate life, purpose, prosperity, and joy. And so, of course, all of this difference making has to do with the multiple facets of life. There's spiritual elements. There's physical elements, which include making cash, money, and having the right things in the world, and even accumulating wealth and resources, not to say empire, ooh, but to do something good. I don't know if you've ever seen that. There's a science fiction series on TV called Foundation, the Foundation series, written by Isaac Asimov, I'd read the books, all of them, many years ago, but they made a series on television that's about some of the books. And there's a dude in there named Empire. And he rules the universe or the galaxy or whatever. And everything about that setup is, war, empire, builder, high control, and that stinks. It reeks. And it does for you too. When you think about it and that sits in your heart, you want to be a difference maker. So the first thing is to recognize what you have. Maybe you've accumulated a bunch of resources, cash, money. I have, and I'm accumulating a lot more. And it is not to have an empire. It is to be of greater service, to use, to build this university, to nurture students, to publish your books, to help you find and utilize, big word, find and use your greatest gift. And we just said a minute ago what that was. And I'm going to remind you so you know what it is. The greatest gift that you have or that I have is the story of your own becoming. And that's just one way of saying, how did you get where you are? What challenges, what trials, what triumphs, what decisions, what growth have you achieved in your life, whether it's 30 years, 40, 50, 60, 70 or more, that has brought you to this point? Because like I said, you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to make a difference in this show. And so the most important tool you have to make that difference is your own experiences, the story of your own becoming. Isn't that fun? Because that means you don't have to go get something. You don't have to go borrow it from someone else. So many people, they want to accumulate a certificate or a degree or a technique or something, and they talk about, that thing over there, and they say, ooh, I'm going to teach you how to use that thing. And there's nothing wrong with all the things we learn how to do. But the thing that carries the power, the truth that carries the power, is the truth of your own existence. So when you say, what is my purpose? What can I give to the world? Now, let me give you some examples. I saw a news article on television the other day, and they announced the coming into effect in Australia of a new law that banned social media for kids under 16. I know the guy who was the engine, the creator to get that law in place. Now, as is usual, the genesis was a tragedy. His daughter committed suicide at 15. And I'm not going to retell the story. His name's Rob Evans, and he's been a guest on the podcast and was on LA Talk Radio and has told the story. But my point is, he was a successful business person, a health trainer, had to do with health. And then this thing happened to his daughter. She committed suicide, changed his whole life. He's making a difference. And the difference is we don't have enough safeguards. We don't have enough wisdom and the ability to manage what social media does. And kids don't have the capability and maturity to understand it. And arbitrarily, the age of 16 was picked. But my point is, he decided to make a difference, and he has. And that law is in effect in Australia now. Not under discussion, not blah-blah-blah, done. And then, of course, there's discussion in Congress in the United States and in other places in Europe and here in Canada about, there's a country here that's not a trivial country who's done some major thing to protect kids from the gross and garbage stuff that's not all, but a lot of social media. So we're going to say you can't do it. Australia said that. And these other countries are now saying, maybe we should do, so you get the drill. So that's one example, and I happen to know him. I met him, and he was on both of my shows. What a fabulous thing. So maybe you don't have a tragedy that would lead you to do that, but there are many who do. You'd be surprised. I have another lady who's been on one of my shows, both of my shows, and I was on her podcast. In fact, I found out later I was her very first guest as she started, and she is was the victim for many years of very, 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 I can't even say enough, very serious domestic abuse that left her with all kinds of lifelong problems. Okay, I'll just describe it that way. And she started a movement called A Contagious Smile. Look it up. She's won now global awards for making a difference and helping people understand and change and get out of those situations and protect themselves. So again, she's turned tragedy into triumph. Well, you can do that too. I don't know what your experiences have been. Sometimes they're little. Sometimes they're big. Sometimes they deal with subtle things. How we treat each other, how we listen, bullying, right? Communication skills, how much we do or don't love each other, tolerance, our ability to have conversations with people that we disagree with. My angel that I married to, Joy, who you guys know, she's been a guest a few times. She was telling me yesterday, I think, that she made a comment, a very innocuous comment on someone's thread that was the thread was extremely opinionated, and Joy just asked, well, what else would we do? And unfriend, block, rage, and it was just staggering, and it made me think about civility. Holy cow. Can't we love each other? We don't have to agree, but we all want to be loved and be happy and do good. And if I hate your guts because you don't want to do good the way I do, man, have we got a problem in our world. So there's all kinds of ways to use your gifts and talents. Okay, I've got a client right now that's a wonderful woman, and she's developed operating codes. Think about upgrading your phone. You pick up your phone every so often, and at least with Apple, I don't know what the Android upgrades look like, but you pick it up, and there's a little number by the settings, and you go there and it says, okay, time to upgrade your operating system, blah, 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 right? And so she's developed codes to upgrade our lives, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we communicate, whether or not we're afraid, whether or not we stand up for what's right. To upgrade your operating system, and she's coined the phrase upgrade your life, like you upgrade your phone. In other words, take these codes and put them into place. Love them. Love it. Love her work. We're working right now on messaging and helping her get this new set of products into the world. But I love her, love what she's doing and everything else. So I want you to think about what you have. You do have something. So many people say, oh, I got nothing. Yes, you do. And if you don't know what it is, get a hold of me. This website right here, Kellan Fluckiger Media. See it? KellanFluckigerMedia.com. There's a contact form there. Please get a hold of me. Let me help you find your story, find your cause, find your impact point, find the way you can be a difference maker. Because I can find it with you. I guarantee it. Never been in a conversation where we couldn't find it. Now, one of the things people say often is, yeah, I know I'd love to do that, but I don't have any money. I don't have any influence. I don't have any power. That's just a lie. You may not have millions to use to go, buy ads or do, big things that might take a lot of money. You may not have the ear of the governor or the president or the prime minister or something. So you think you don't have any influence. And you say, well, I don't control anything. Nonsense. You control the most important thing and the only thing you're ever going to control, and that's your own attitude, your own actions, and your own behavior. So here's the question. Power, let's redefine that, is not capacity or ability to control, but capacity to serve. Now, if you redefine power as the ability to serve or capacity to serve, you have infinite power. And don't waste any time pretending you don't. Maybe you haven't spent time looking around for where you can serve. Now, there's simple examples that we use all the time: opening doors, carrying things for people, helping someone who's in trouble, change a tire, pick up something, falls down in a store. All of those things are regular. Stuff at school, chaperoning field trips, and all of those are ways that we can serve. And they're natural and they're normal, and as human beings, we're drawn to do that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about, and that's good, I am further talking about something that's directly yours, that's only yours, and it's related to who you are. Now, as I've developed that, one of the things, I'm going to give you some examples from my life, but as I do, I don't want you to hear it about me, because this is not about whoop-de-doo for Kellan. This is about you. What is your opportunity? So I've learned how to help people find and tell their stories to great effect. Products, services, money, impact, speaking. Yeah, I've learned to do that. You know how I learned it? By telling mine, by learning my own story, by examining my life and what I've learned, and then beginning to write. And now I've written 20-something books. And And the point isn't 20 books. The point is the stories. I've learned to use that. And because I learned to do it myself, then I've learned also to help other people with that. One of the greatest joys of my life is helping people write, to mine their lives and then write that story and then create whatever product or service makes sense from what they've got to serve the world. So that's one that I do. I also have learned to teach people how to speak on stages and how to sell products and services, how to serve in the public by developing the ability to speak and speak well and powerfully. So you have that, and I'd be delighted to help you find out what your gifts, talents, and service capabilities are. Get a hold of me. And if you say, well, I don't know how, then you're not trying. You can find me, and you can if you want to. Now, here's another thing that I have learned, and that is compete less and contribute more. In the early years, when we're trying to create an empire, it's about conquering and being bigger and being more and being above and being more than, and the other person is less than, and all that kind of stuff. And if you compete well, you win the game, and you accumulate money, and you get the promotion. And if you don't combine that with service and love and kindness and everything else, you're a miserable, hollow, empty nothing, and you know it if you've done this and lived there. You know, that's an experience I have. So when I talk about that emptiness, even with cash running out of your ears, it's true, it's real, and it's deadly. So the antidote is contribution. The antidote is service. The engine for joy is love, right? The fuel is service. And that isn't just things I go give away. That isn't the only definition of service. Every time I take a person through my book work, for example, and help them write a book and publish it, and Joy runs our publishing, get it on Amazon, get a bestseller, create a product or service, a coaching program, or some other kind of workshop, I have helped them. I feel great, and I get paid. So it isn't about just giving away. It isn't about just giving everything away until you're empty and you die broke and starving. That is not what this is about. When you truly serve, you have every right and opportunity to get paid, and paid really well. And in fact, and this is not true all the time, and I'm not saying don't volunteer, so don't hear all that. But the idea that you have to give everything away in order to be of service is nonsense. The greatest services that I have done are ones I've been paid really well to do. And one of the reasons is because when I give service like that and people pay, there's an exchange and people are more committed. I used to help people all the time for free, about how to write their books, and the same stuff I do now. Almost none of them finished. Almost none of them went on to create products and impact. The ones that pay and go through the process with a transaction, they stay in the game. They stay in the game, and they keep going, and they do stuff. It's a function of investment of your time, your energy, and your cash. It's the same with you. So if you want to be a difference maker, find that thing in you, that story, that developmental journey. Develop it in a way so you can identify and teach the things that have mattered in your life, and then begin to do that. It's joyful, it's fun, and it'll help you create purpose, prosperity, and joy. You can turn all of your pain, struggle, suffering, injustice, adversity into power, into a platform, and into something service-oriented. You can, if you want to, turn your message into a mission. I have, and that's one of the reasons I love helping people do that, because like me, I know so many people who are successful, have a good job, they make money, they have a family if they want to, and they have that, and they're sitting there feeling, why am I not feeling fulfilled, satisfied, like I matter? Well, it's because you're not doing anything that matters to a larger audience. Now, if you're being a great mom or a great dad, and you're taking the time and energy to cultivate a rich relationship with your partner and with your children, that may be the most important work you ever do. I have a guy right now who's not a client, but he's someone that I love and I've helped and I'm going to in the future, and he may end up being a client, writing a book and stuff. But his nurturing is, he's got a passion for boys, to get him out in the wild and to have some experiences, in the field and in farm-like things, to get close to the earth and see nature and animals and experiences that will give them feelings and experiences that they haven't had anywhere else. And often that kind of thing is working with those underprivileged. You use that word, but people that haven't had those opportunities. I got another lady who's a client who does that all the time. She goes to Africa and helps with leadership things. And, there's so many ways, and some of them she's paid and some not, and some paid really well. And it's all service. It's all turning away from empire building and into difference making. Here's the thing. You and I were born with nothing, obviously, naked and nothing. When we leave this world, we're going to be naked and have nothing, right? Everything that we did stays here. The only thing that goes with us is not what we did, but who we have become. The compassion, the tenderness, the love, the patience, the tolerance, the joy, the service. Every time we do that, that makes something more out of us. It might put stuff in our bank account too, and it might not. But when it's done with love and service and joy and intention, and with the focus of lifting others, it changes who we are. We are souls. That invisible part of us become more substantive. And that we take with us. Who we have become. Now, we all know everybody has got gifts and talents. And what we have made of them, the use we've made of them, the service we've given with those, will be written on our souls. It may also be reflected in our bank accounts, but we're not taking that. Nobody's going to ask your bank balance on the other side. And who we have become will be as obvious as the sunrise behind me. The energy of the truth of our souls will be broadcast from our faces and from our very being. All right, so there's a couple of other points I want to make here, and that is this. There's some mechanics of making a meaningful impact. The mechanics are you need to align your mission, as you mind your life and look what you have, your mission and the mastery you have over yourself. Now, if you've had difficult things happen and you've let them ruin you and you're still raging about that rotten business partner or ex-spouse or whatever, and if that's consuming you, you haven't achieved any degree of mastery. But when you do achieve mastery over that and you let it refine you instead of ruin you, that helps you create a mission. So when you can align your mission with the degree of mastery you have achieved, and I'm not pretending anyone's got to be perfect, and you look at the market need, like what's going on in the world, that your mission that's come from your life experience and your degree of mastery, there is a market need. And you could say, well, I don't even see one. Nonsense. If you look at the world right now as divided and angry and frustrated and violent, and there is crying need, and the normal way everybody thinks about it, just throw money at it. Well, that's really effective. It doesn't work. We need to throw passion, people's kindness, love, structure that focuses on that. And believe me, there is a market need. Well, if you can line up, if you're willing to do the work to line up your mission, your degree of mastery, and get to a market need, you can get paid. Oh, man, you can get paid. You can get paid well, and I am, and I know lots of people that are. And you know what they're paid for? Adding good to the world. They're paid for doing good. And you should be. And again, I'm not saying don't volunteer your brains out. But here's the thing. If I or you volunteer, the scale and scope of our impact is small. A few people in a limited area. If you acquire a lot of resources, if you gather tremendous following or money or both, your ability to create larger impact is obviously exponentially magnified. So I want you to think about that, because so many times when I'm coaching people, they say, well, I feel like, any of this stuff should be given away. Well, you know what? People do not appreciate things, and they don't use them when they're given away. Give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach him to fish, feed him for life. You've heard that before, or a woman. And in order for us to stay in the game and do something on a large scale, we've got to accumulate resources. All right, profit, cash, profit. It will follow your purpose when you lead with integrity. And integrity means there's no camouflage. You are who you say you are. The lessons you've learned and that you teach and that you help with are authentic. And you're teaching from a place of your own personal experience. If you talk about that thing over there, you're dead. Besides, AI's coming, going to eat your lunch anyway. Things to know and things to do are infinitely and instantly available. The thing that is not available through any technology is your own lived experience that you share, that touches the heart and soul and lifts the circumstance of someone else. So here's what you do practically. Okay, you start small. Okay, I showed you this book, Living with Purpose and Power. Start there. If you want to talk to me, KellanFluckigerMedia.com, and then examine your life so you can help yourself find a purpose. Choose it. Now, I have a couple of invitations. I know that a lot of people that I talk to have achieved or are in the process of achieving or doing or executing this very thing that we're talking about. If that's you, again, I invite you to get a hold of me. Contact form Kellan Fluckiger Media, because I love sharing your story. I love being a megaphone. This is episode 1,000 and something, and we've been going for years, and we're going to go for more years. And I have a large and successful platform. I'd like to share your story. I'd like to help you write your book, if you don't already have that done, as a launch platform for the good you want to add to the world. So where you start is right where you are. You start with what you have, and you begin with a fixed determination to add good to the world. That's the way to purpose, prosperity, and joy. One project, one promise kept, one small step at a time. Nobody starts at the top of the mountain. Now, I have a couple of final questions. If you had nothing at all left to prove, what would you give? If you think in your mind and you knew in your heart you had absolutely nothing left to prove, how would you live? What would you give? Okay. I have also found, as a final piece of information, that in my effort to do this, my dedication and work, that getting good coaching from those who are doing and have done this kind of work, personal work, impact work, large-scale reach, that's been critical. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about coaching, being a coach, and encouraging people to follow that yearning in your heart. If I can help you, contact form on Kellan Fluckiger Media. If you don't reach out, I won't know. What I do know is that you're a divine being. I do know that I love you. I do know that no matter where you've been or what you've been through, you can start where you are and create your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe. Share.
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet on the ground.